Faithful. Today I'll be talking on how hydro systems work. To start with, hydropower systems were first discovered by a German engineer called Leicester Adam Pelton in 1822. He contributed to the primary foundation of the forming of hydropower systems in America. Now, hydroelectric power involves turning captured energy into captured energy gained from flowing water into electricity. Now, it works through a basic process whereby the water flows in to the dam and goes down to the turbine to propel the turbine, and the turbine activates a generator that produces electricity. But I'll go further into details. Alright, to start with, a hydropower system is usually made up of a reservoir where water is stored in large quantity behind it. Now the water comes in from the reservoir. Water comes in from the reservoir through an intake gate and goes through the Pentecost valve, where acted through gravity. And gravity causes the water to go through the Pentecost valve to spin the turbine. But before we get to the turbine, I'd like to give a reason why the water has to go in through the reservoir, through the Pentecost valve. Basically, in constructing a hydropower system, you really have to take note of the head. That is the distance between the peak of the hydro power system, the peak of the reservoir, and the height of where the turbine is. That's where the Pentecost is. Because basically, it's the gravity that comes through, that pushes the water down, that determines the pressure acting on top the turbine. Now, when the water comes in through the turbine, it goes to the turbine. In powering the turbine, you have to consider the flow. The flow here means the amount of water that comes in through the Pentecost valve. The Pentecost valve is has a narrow gate compared to the reservoir. This is to increase the pressure of the water coming in. Now, the amount of water coming in through the Pentecost comes in a large force because its large amount of water is forced through a small gate, acted by gravity, hitting the turbine to spin the turbine. Now, the turbine has a shaft. It's clearer here. The turbine has a shaft that is connected to the generator. Basically, what the shaft does is it works on a basic principle of Faraday's rule, where an electromagnet turned with layers of wires rub through a conductor to produce electricity. Now, when the magnet rubs through a conductor, an electromagnet runs through a conductor, electricity is produced. Now, basically, the amount of water that hits the turbine blade at an angle determines how much power will be released through the generator. And in connecting the power source for distribution from the generator to the houses, you have to consider the angle of the water coming to the turbine and the speed with which the turbine rotates, because the turbine rotates to rotate a shaft that spins the magnets around the conductor to produce electricity. Now, the calculations to consider: the power, to calculate the amount of power produced from the powerhouse of the hydro system, you have to consider the head. Like I rightly said, the head is the distance from the reservoir, the height of the reservoir to the Pentecost valve. You have to consider the height. It has to be a large height so that the water content will be increased. And the flow is the amount of water that flows through, amount of water that can pass through the Pentecost in a given second, and it's measured in liters per second. And the gravity here is a constant value given at 9.8 meters per second. So you have to have those values to determine the power produced by the hydroelectric dam. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. Okay, what is the big advantage of using a hydroelectric system, a hydropower system?
The advantage of using a hydro system is, unlike fossil fuel, where there's a release of pollutants into the environment, the hydro system is basically natural. It's more natural because it involves no pollutants. You just use the pressure of the water to spin a simple generator based on Faraday's rule, where the magnets turn through the conductor to produce electricity.
Okay. So what kind of depth of reservoir do you need to make this effective? Do you have any ideas?
Particularly for figures, I have no ideas, but basically dams are built.
See, you've only got 12 metres there. That's pretty good. That's not very tall. Your example on the right-hand side,
Oh yeah.
you're talking about only 12 metres head.
Yeah.
So that's quite reasonable.
That's pretty high, but not
exactly.
as big standard. But basically, a dam is built to be large because it supplies a large amount of energy to power from stations and other things. So basically, the height has to be big. And apart from producing electricity, dams are built to standard because they have to last a long time, and they prevent flooding. They stand as a wedge for flooding.
Okay. Right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Right.